Right, so welcome once again on this wet and summery Thursday afternoon. So welcome everybody. I'm delighted again as always to have Emma with us, Alosa and Ian Wood. Thank you for graciously once again giving your time for our discussion. I'm just going to ask you all to introduce yourself. For those that haven't been watching or perhaps haven't watched our previous videos, I'm Natalie. I'm from Noah's Ark. I'm the Young Person Counseling Coordinator there. Work with young people, families, and support our wonderful volunteer counselors as well. Maybe we can just move to you, Alosa, and then go around.
I'm Alosa. I'm Therapeutic Services Manager at Noah's Ark, and I work therapeutically with children, young people and adults, and support the staff and volunteers to do the same.
Excellent. And Ian?
Hi, I'm Ian Wood. I work for a company called North Point Wellbeing, and I'm the school links person for Open Minds. Open Minds is the new word for CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. So I work in schools to support schools with strategies around wellbeing and mental health.
Excellent. And Emma?
Hi, yeah, I'm Emma. I'm also from the Noah's Ark Centre. I work with children and young people in schools, primary and secondary schools, therapeutically, and I am part of the ASD team, so work with children and young people with autism and learning disabilities and their families.
Excellent. Oh, so wealth of experience once again, aren't we? I'm just so thankful, guys, for giving up your time. And so today we were going to talk about just transition and what it looks like in this changed and different world that we find ourselves in. So, usually the normal transitions, going to reception, perhaps you're in high school and you're going off to college, maybe you want to take a gap here, but of course, it all looks very different out there at the moment. And maybe things we would just take for granted before, well, it's can't be taken for granted at the moment, can it? So yeah, I was just wondering, what are your thoughts when it comes to transition, and how might I was just thinking maybe we can open up a bit of a discussion about that today. Hello, so you're nodding. What were you sort of thinking?
Let me unmute. Yeah, I'm just thinking that the pressures that are usually around in transition for whoever's involved in it, parents, young people, staff at school, there's always a lot of pressure, a lot of preparation, a lot of planning that goes around any transitions, whether that's going into school for, at the start in reception, or whether it be going to college, going off to uni. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, isn't there? And planning in the mind, planning actually kind of contacting different schools and colleges and all that. And I really feel for young people in this time that we're in at the moment, having to plan, and they can't plan. And obviously we're facing that in just about everything. It's really hard to plan for things, but I think when you're a young person, it kind of will take the excitement away from creates that anxiety around that transition, perhaps, that not knowing what you're looking ahead to, what you might be planning ahead to. I mean, that's my imagining, that's the way I'm thinking. It's, it'd be very interesting to get a feel for what young people are experiencing now, and maybe over the months we'll be able to capture a bit more of that. What's actually how they've felt this. But yeah, I think that level of uncertainty around those transitions, and for parents on that other end, I'm thinking about how they you're always feeling anxious. Maybe your child's going off to school for the first time, and then within this zone of uncertainty again, that anxiety must be quite high, I would imagine. All the questions, you already have a lot of questions, but there's going to be a whole host of other ones that go along with that. So yeah, I think it's the anxiety, the uncertainty around some of these transitions that I just imagine is going to be quite stressful for people going through them.
Yes. I mean, it's stressful enough, isn't it, when you with transitions, which implicates change and suggests newness, and of course sometimes it's very exciting, but then you might be a bit robbed, feel a bit robbed of that excitement, or teenagers like novelty, don't they? You might be a bit robbed of the novelty or the exploring and wanting to explore new worlds, or new environments. And yeah. What do you guys think, Ian, Emma? What are your thoughts around this subject?
Oh, it is one of the wonderful things about our work, and I know that Noah's Ark and North Point Wellbeing and Healthy Minds, the organisations in Calderdale, we have for the last few years been very much interested in supporting people going through transitions in education. And obviously that's something that we focus on when we're in normal times. But more recently, we've had this long gap, which has meant that most children haven't been to school. But we're at a phase, whilst this is being recorded, we're right at the end of term, and there's a summer holiday, and then everybody's expected, within reason, to go back to school in September. So there's a new transitioning taking place, as well as the normal stuff. I mean, most children are very happy to go back to school. A lot of children have gone back to school, and again, normal circumstances, children will feel worried or uncertain about starting secondary school, going to college, sixth form, leaving college, and even parents will be worried about the children starting. But we've got this new dynamic thrown in there. So I think, although, like I say, most children will cope and do that very well, we have to be very clear about how we can support those children that may not normally experience problems, but this has thrown up new issues. But also, we've got a responsibility for those children that will struggle anyway. So yeah, it's quite a big deal, and I imagine that things have been amplified through these times. So yeah, I think the process of transition is now become a more complex issue than it would be normally. I know that some of the parents I've spoken to are more worried about transition than they have been before. And again, it's because going back to school is new. They've had not just a long break, they've had a very significant break, months. So getting used to that is going to be something that we are planning for. And I think that's one thing that schools normally do very well, is they plan transitions. There's all manner of processes involved with transitioning. But this time, all those normal plans have kind of had to change. So again, a lot of schools I've seen, they've done transition videos, they've done virtual tours and walkarounds. But that's not the same as being in school. Normally it would be probably this Friday, wouldn't it, where children get the chance to spend a day in class or in the new school. So what they're doing now is they're having to be introduced via media, and a lot of these kids will have had an opportunity to visit the school back in October last year, in the existing school that they're in. But I do think that unfamiliarity is going to be the biggest problem. Just being thrown back in to school on the 7th of September is going to be very awkward.
Yes. Ian, thank you. That's just really helpful, just to set the context a bit. And yeah, and I'm just thinking there's going to be so many different emotions going on that day. Some will be excited to get back, some will be like dreading it. And of course, parents' anxiety being heightened. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so much pressure on staff as well to, like you say, you have to do it differently. You're having to think about things differently. It's just pressure all around, isn't it? But like you say, it's so important to support this process more than ever. So much need, so important. Oh, thank you, Ian. And Emma, what are your thoughts?
It just sort of struck me when Ian was speaking then, actually, about the transition for the kids now, because they're at home but being sort of doing their schoolwork at home. The transition from going to that to the summer holidays, I think, might be quite difficult for some. That loss of structure and loss of contact with school while they're at home, even, that might have been quite a big constant for some of them whilst they've been in this situation where they're stuck at home. I mean, I know it's different now because things are opening up and they've probably got more chance to go out and do things, meet friends and do things that way. But for some children who are more isolated and more introvert maybe, and don't have those social connections as much as others, it might be quite difficult to lose that momentum really of school, and then to go from no structure and having no schoolwork to do to then go back into school after this lockdown, it might be an even bigger jump than it would have been to go from this to school, because it's still, you're in the momentum a little bit. But yeah, it just had not really thought of that before Ian just said about the summer holidays, and I thought, oh gosh, yeah, like some people might really struggle with that.
Oh, Emma, as you said, I didn't even think about that myself, and that's so true, because that's a kind of psychological holding at school, isn't it? Albeit virtually. And, in so many ways, it's such a wonderful psychological holding and consistency. And you're absolutely right. I mean, what will that mean to some of our young people and some of the children? Gosh, so much to think about. Yeah. And what about kids that are going off, that would normally go to college or that might be going to university? What does this all mean for them?
Well, I mean, I wonder, and I think about that pressure at that age to, I've been thinking about this before any of this pandemic and lockdown and everything, that kids are actually quite pressured at that age to know what they want to do in life, know what job, and even before kind of college and, in your year 9, 10 perhaps, before year 10, because it's when you're choosing your GCSEs and things. It's very much career focused, and it's quite a big pressure to know what area, what job they maybe want to go into. And I wonder if there's might be quite a bit of confusion more pressure and confusion about that now, because it's hard to look ahead, isn't it, when at the moment you're just kind of going on that day by day, and that's how you've been getting through a lot of this and that's what the advice has been, take each day at a time, don't worry too much about the future. But then at the same time, you're back in school and you've got to think about your GCSEs and you've got to think about your A levels and what you're going to be doing, and are you going to go to uni afterwards? So there's a lot of big questions on young people. I think that, I don't know, sometimes I do wonder, do they actually have to know? And I wonder whether there's and I've often thought this, and I wonder if it's more relevant now, that kind of pressure we put on young people to know what they might want to do. Personally speaking, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was at GCSE in college. I wasn't aiming for a particular job. I know lots of people have done from time gone by, I want to be a doctor, I want to do this, I want to, but I think it's okay not to know, and I think young people need to know that explicitly, almost, that because they don't know what they want to do, there's nothing wrong in that, and I think maybe it's our duty as kind of carers and adults, whether it's parents and staff, to kind of make them feel comfortable and safe in that not knowing. It's okay if you haven't decided what you want to do. That's perfect. There's nothing strange in that. And maybe the important things is about encouraging and nurturing what their interests, what their strengths and what their kind of values are. And that, I think that's quite key then, maybe for what they might pick up ahead. If you know what you're good at, if you know what you're interested in, and what your core kind of values are, that kind of can steer you in a direction. So I wonder whether some of those things are more important in our culture today, in a sense, rather than focusing on something really direct. And I think lots of young people might feel lost because they don't know, and I do think they need to be kind of reassured and told it's okay. It really is okay not to know what you want to do.
Alisa, no, when you were talking, I was just thinking so many things were going through my mind, because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm just thinking about those young people that are quite anxious, and of course, when you're feeling anxious, you want more control, but actually, that's not really possible. And you know, it just requires so much resilience of young people to navigate these times, doesn't it? More than ever. And I'm just thinking about attachment as well. If you haven't had, you know, that whole sort of safe base in your early years or your formative years, and you perhaps don't think the world's 100% safe, and then you're sort of having to make decisions as well. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just feeling a surge of empathy right now for young people out there. But the other thing that was going through my mind as you're talking, I was just thinking, you know, having this time, because we always talk about, you know, the brain of adolescents, you know, kind of specializing and sort of bedding down and forming those neural pathways and kind of focusing on what they really want to become one day, and you know, and where you put your focus, that's where your brain circuits develop. And I was just thinking that maybe sometimes, like in this time they've been given, they may well have naturally just been drawn to the things they're really interested in, and perhaps naturally explored, and you know, so it might be quite a time of discovery on the other hand as well. I don't know. I guess we'll see, but I'm very curious to see what's going to come out of all of this time that, you know, we've had. Oh, I think it's sort of a bit of a minefield, really. But certainly challenging for some, I'm sure. Absolutely. Goodness. Yeah. No, thank you, Loisa, for sharing that. That's so pertinent. Yeah, and what's going through your mind, Ian and Emma, as Loisa was saying that?
I was just thinking, sorry, I was just thinking about the young people going off to university, that yeah, it's a big transition anyway. It's a big transition academically because of, well, it is anyway, but because of all this, they've not even had a chance to do their A-levels. They don't know where they sit. They don't know what's going on about getting in places. I think they probably do now, but as well, it's transitioning back into, from being locked in with your family to living with strangers, to not knowing, to people coming and going, things. It's a totally different living situation, which in ordinary life is difficult for them. But after this and the uncertainty of, is it safe to do these things? What is it safe to do? Who is it safe to be close to? Where do they miss out on all the nightlife stuff that they do when they go there? What's going to be open? What's going to be available to them? Sports teams, things like that is there to build the bonds of people going off to university, and part of that life. It's not just about the learning, is it? And I think a lot of the learning is going to be done remotely to start with anyway. So it's missing out on all that. It's a transition, but it's not the full transition that they've been thinking of for their whole life, really. If they've been wanting to go to uni all their life, that's what they've imagined, and they're missing out on so many things because it's not safe to do.
It's true, isn't it? And as you were saying that, Emma, I just thought, will a virtual world become more of a reality? You know, will they be playing games on, you know, will that be their world? Will they be competing in that way? Will they join teams online? What will that world look like? It's uncharted territory, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think students spend a lot of their time on video games anyway, Natalie. I remember even how many years back student life on.
Well, we say that, don't we? But I was reading something the other day that said, I was surprised because it's amazing how many adults spend time on gaming. Apparently, it's not just young people.
The university on the news, they were saying that there's a record high for applications to university this time around. And I did wonder to myself whether, you know, because there's that thing of transitioning, you can't guarantee you're going to be transitioning into a job, can you? So I guess you might as well go to university in a sense. I mean, obviously you're gathering some debt and there's complications around that, but you know, you may have been fed up living at home with your parents, stuck in the house, and you're thinking as a young person, I cannot take this anymore. Get me out of here to have a university experience, even if it's sat in a room gaming. I can imagine, you know.
In my space.
Or I suppose on the other side of it, is it that the anxiety of moving out and going to live in student accommodation is not as high because you could maybe do it from home and do learning at home, and is that going to be the way forward?
Yeah, for some young people, I'm sure the change will be terrifying. No
Mm.
doubt. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, Ian, what are you thinking?
I was just thinking back to my times at school, sort of GCSEs, A-levels, then college and university. And one of the things that I know that a lot of young people are talking about at the moment is that absence of that. I suppose it's kind of the downtime that you normally get between finishing exams and then going on to the next move. That's a celebration where you spend lots of time connected with people, where you don't have to think about things. Whereas they've had kind of the flip of that. They've had lots of time not doing stuff, but isolated. The other big thing as well is, talking about exams, what's another big rite of passage? It's that going into school to collect your results and being surrounded by people. Yeah, that can be very traumatic for some because they might not get the grades that they want, and then joyous for those that do get the grades that they want. But again, how are schools going to do that? I mean, I'm aware of some schools that are already saying that those results are going to be emailed out on the day. So they're not going to have an opportunity to go in and pick those up. There might be schools that have different systems where it's appointment based, I'm not sure, but you can't go and hug your friends. You can't have those same kind of things. And again, with that in mind, I was also thinking about those children that have been back in school and they've almost had the school to themselves or a small group. And then all of a sudden, September, everybody's going to come back in again. And, you know, how awkward that will be. So I suppose what it made me think about is that idea that you don't have to be alone to be lonely. That's something that a lot of lonely people talk about, is that they could be surrounded by people but still feel alone. But it's the idea of being removed from the normal celebrations and milestones in life and having to do those differently. My daughter's GCSE this year, she's not going to have that chance to celebrate. She's missed out on a prom. She's missed out on all manner of things that are normal stuff. So all these kind of things are probably going through children's minds. Talking about university, going to visit Freshers' Weeks. I don't know. I haven't looked into what universities are doing, but I imagine that there's not much in the way of planning yet for those startup days. So it's almost like, because this will go away, it's almost like there's going to be a generation where things have been missed. And how's that going to affect people moving forward? I've got very fond memories of those days. Yeah, saying that because of COVID era social distancing, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. Oh, and you know, there's something about loss and rites of passage that they're not gonna experience that in the same way, are they? And you know, these shared experiences are so important, especially with young people, and that whole bonding experience. It's almost like the territory has changed. And yeah, when you're talking about, you know, some kids being in school, not all kids being back at school, those friendships and alliances that are being made, and then all the other kids coming back in, and it's going to change again. So it is so challenging on so many levels. Yeah. And is there something about, you know, feeling robbed maybe of those opportunities to have those experiences, have those rites of passage? I don't know. There's all questions that are going through my mind as you said that.
I think one of the biggest challenges is that we could address those things over time. But I think the organisations that are responsible for looking after the children in that way and celebrating and rejoicing in new ways, they've had so many other things to do as well as, I mean, just the idea of getting a school up and running is immense. So unfortunately, the kind of things like, you know, having an online prom, having a kind of a celebration day, all those things I'm sure will come later down the line, and that's again something to look forward to. But they've not had the chance to think about all these things because they've had priorities that have been far more important in terms of just opening up a school and making it safe. Teaching children who aren't in school, preparing for exam marking without the children sitting exams. So all kind of the well-being stuff, we're all aware of it. We all kind of know what we should be doing about it. We just haven't had the opportunity to, I suppose, see what is going to arise from it, because we've been very supportive with our toolkits, our planning, our resources, but we're kind of putting the planning ahead of time, which is fantastic, but we're kind of almost waiting. You know, what's going to happen next? Are the problems going to emerge? Like I say, I think most children will cope fine. They always do. And that's the wonderful thing about the flexibility of us as biological entities. But it's just the small minority that will struggle, that really have so much more, in my mind. It's like a tidal wave I see coming. And that's not me being pessimistic, because I say we are planning for it, we're thinking about it, but it's just so different and unusual.
Yeah.
Talking about it makes you go off on tangents.
But it's interesting though, isn't it? And it's good to consider these things. I'm just thinking, as a parent, it's not what you sign up for to watch your kid not have those moments. There's a little bit of sadness, I imagine, as a parent as well. Yeah.
I'm thinking as well, as Ian's been talking about those, and particularly before, there's like one transition after the other for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, for parents possibly in their jobs, in their home life, you know, one kid's going to school, one kid's not at school. Are we having this holiday? Are we not? Are we going here, going there? You know, lots of little transitions to cope with. And I think something that been thinking as Ian's talking there, and been thinking on a personal level, been thinking just kind of, and I'm thinking it applies to everybody, just as you've mentioned parents there, Natalie, but is that recovery time? So we may not be going on, like you said, Ian, there's been no kind of downtime, and there's been a lot of thought for staff, a lot of complicated systems to work out, and for other organisations and for parents as well. It's been very, our brains, us as human beings, and as flexible and adaptable as we are, we've not really had any downtime in this process. And obviously summertime is often that downtime. And I think one thing is to really try and capture some of that as best we can. And I'm thinking about staff who will obviously, you know, senior managers and whoever staff in schools will be taking this work home with them, and we think we'll be going through all this stuff, you know, I'm sure a lot of the time, but I think it's really important that they have some recovery time as well to rejuvenate for what it's going to be like as well. You know, September, what's going to flow, come their way, and all that planning for, am I choosing plan C or plan B or plan F or Z, or, you know, that will come at that point. How are they going to fit their plans together? Because it's a draining experience for people. And I think that there does need to be that self-care fitted in there, and for young people as well, encouraging them not to, because it could be easy as a parent to think to yourself, you need to be catching up with all this work that you've missed out on over this time, or you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. But I think there needs, even if you're not going away on an actual holiday, have some downtime to try and switch off from answering all these really complicated questions and systems. And I know as school staff that will be hard, but even if it can be some allotted time, you know, we talk about having certain times, don't we? But, you know, make sure there are some times either in the day, or you take a whole few days off of thinking about this, just to rejuvenate yourself and give your brain a rest. You know, it's difficult.
Oh, so, you know, I think you're so right. Self-care is more important than ever, you know, because come September, it absolutely look after you.
Adults, I think we'll need to prepare ourselves for, you know, let's try and have some good time. We've talked about play, haven't we? We've talked about play and arts and all those things, but have some time that you can really do the things that make you feel good, you know, because I think we need to be healthy when we get to that time when all the kids are back again, and you know,
absolutely. You know, as you're saying that, Alois, I felt my inner child sort of leaping, going, yep, listen, give me some airtime, you know. It is like that, isn't it? Because when you're planning and strategizing and problem solving, you're using all your frontal cortex, you're using very much your adult brain. where's the time for play? And of course our internal child needs some expression too as adults. It's not just for the kids, and play is so important as an adult as well. We've got to play and yeah, have some of that expression, downtime like you say, and self-care key to resilience and going forward. Absolutely, it's a false economy to do otherwise, isn't it? So good. Yeah. Oh, Emma, what were you? I can see I can just see lots of thoughts going through your mind. What were you thinking?
Just thinking, when you say about resilience, I just think children are resilient, aren't they? Like we've said, most children will be fine going back to school and are fine through each transition. And yeah, they get nervous, and yes, it's overwhelming. They are resilient. People are resilient. As human beings, we are resilient. I suppose there are the other children that, I suppose, we don't, as professionals, we don't often come across those children. They don't come into our services. It's not those children that come that we work with, is it? Those children, in fact, they go about their business and they don't need us. It's the children that do that. I suppose it's thinking about resilience for them and working out what lessens their resilience and what gives them a little bit more resilience, and trying to help them work that out for themselves and have those tools that they can then keep that resilience for those times. And then it lessens, obviously, as the bad things happen, as the things that they don't want to do happen, and then give them ways to know how to build that resilience back up so they can do it again the next time and the next time and the next time, and just so they can regulate that resilience a little bit themselves. And yeah, it's going to be really difficult for some children, I think. And yeah.
Oh, I love that, because I'm a firm believer success builds success, it breeds success, you know. And you're so right, you can do it once, you can do it again. It's like facing those challenges, because we can't hide away from it either, can we? We have to face it. And like, you know, I was saying, it's so important to have that support. But I do feel for teachers as well, the ones that are supporting and doing all of the supporting, it must be exhausting and so challenging. But yeah, I guess there's also something about, you know, congratulating ourselves, and teachers, I hope they're congratulating themselves as well, to just say, you know what, in these difficult times we've done an amazing job, actually. You know, it's something about stopping and just taking stock and saying, yeah, actually, well done. Well done, you know. Yeah. You're smiling, and what were you thinking? Because obviously you have a lot of contact with schools, so I guess you've probably got a real inside view of what's going on in real life.
I've had less contact with schools over the last few. Yeah, I mean, I think schools are remarkable places. Again, when we talk about resilience and overcoming challenge, and just the amount of effort and determination on all school staff, and I mean all school staff, to get them open and running again and operating again. If you think about what September start's going to look like, the idea of these kind of bubbles. I know schools are operating in bubbles at the moment, but getting more children in. But the whole environments have to shift as well. So again, the idea of transitioning from, say, primary to secondary school normally is tough, but transitioning to a secondary school that's going to look and feel very different and have certain rules imposed. And again, the wonderful thing that I've seen coming out of schools, and again, parents, carers will have received lots of information about what it's going to be like. One of the things that I always talk to children about when we do our transition talks is about being prepared. So planning ahead of time. And I think more so than ever, that's more important. So it's the idea of perhaps having an idea what that school might look like, what it might feel like. Again, it is nice that we've got these tours, these videos that they can look at, but just trying to have an idea of the day-to-day feel of the environment, I think is very important. It's almost, again, it's like embodying the ideas ahead of time. So what are going to be the children's worries and concerns going back? You know, the normal ones are getting lost, being bullied, not knowing who people are, meeting new people, all those kind of normal things. But now we've got that idea of, is school going to be staggered starts, so this class groups can be smaller or bigger? Are they going to see people that we would normally see because they might be kind of tucked away? So these are the kind of questions, if I were a parent or a carer, would be asking, what's it going to look like? What plans are the children going to be safe? How are they going to be safe? And what are the buses going to look like? I mean, the idea of having these bubbles kind of goes out the window when it means everyone's crammed onto the same bus. So again, there's lots of quirks in the planning which can't be accounted for. And again, not all the planning is put in place. But talking to school staff, they are trying their utmost to make children feel safe, secure, and organised ahead of time. And that's really the most important thing. And parents, again, to encourage, again, like Alosa was saying, how do parents and carers want to be remembered after all this has happened? Do they want to be remembered for being kind of pushy? Do they want to be remembered for being supportive? Do they want? And again, these are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about: is what can parents do to make sure that those children feel safe and secure? And all I can think about is being prepared, ask lots of questions, try and find out as much information as possible. Mental health services, we've got a whole range of resources at hand to support you as well. So I think it's very much about, if I'm worried about A, B, C or D, ask the questions to the school about those things. Or if it's a worry around mental health, stress, anxiety, ask the mental health services, because we are all working very hard to try and make sure that our young people have the opportunity to be happy, okay with their futures.
Yes. And that's so true. Those two keywords, safe and secure, because that's what kids need. They need to feel safe and secure, don't they? And it's like, even us as adults, the more information we've got, the more in control we feel. And if our anxiety is heightened, then we need even more. We need even more to feel in control, don't we? And that information is key. I think it's such a good point what you've made there. Absolutely. Absolutely. And hats off to school for providing that, and for bearing that in mind. Sorry, Alosa.
Well, I was just thinking it's a bit of an interactive process really in the system, isn't it? Because often schools may not know the kind of things that they will be exploring all sorts of things, but they may not have answers to all your questions as parents. But at least that interaction, if you've got particular concerns, it can help them shape their plans and think, oh right, okay, that is something that is relevant for our school and our parents and our children. And I think it's parents as well exploring in a curious and inquisitive way, not in a kind of tell me how you feel sort of way, but in a open ears and open to hearing what their children's worries and concerns might be, and however strange and bizarre those might be, and I think the same for schools and parents, because I think what's come up for me is listening when I have had the opportunity to sort of hear some head teachers or some parents and kind of different sides, is that actually there's things that come up that we just wouldn't have might not have thought about, that people were worried about. So by sharing those, it's that interaction, isn't it, of being able to kind of solve the problems together, because we are in a zone where we may not have answers for some of these things. You as parents may not have the answers when your children ask, what will we do? Will I get to do this? Will I get to do that? You may not have those answers. And it's being okay with sometimes the not knowing, but so that is a concern, and we will do our best to see, oh, so you're concerned about this, well, we'll find out, or that's kind of how you create that safety as well, by showing that you've heard. You may not have the answer, but you're listening, and you've heard what the concern is. And I was thinking back to what Ian was saying about the bubbles, and I know that I'm thinking of my children who have gone to high school. They quite appreciated that thing. When they're in year 6, they get this whole kind of, they've been in the same class for years, and it's that kind of, they get to branch out and move around and see different teachers, and that whole kind of moving around. Some kids really like that. I think my kids liked that kind of aspect of meeting different people and different people in your classes and things. And that is something that may well go, when in this new bubble system. They may be in one group. They may not get to move around as much, you know, which kind of brings that thing of making new friends, doesn't it? Who's in your bubble and who's not, and how those opportunities to make those different relationships, and not just with their peers, but with the staff as well. And so some of that might become more limited, which again is just it's something that we're to be thought about, isn't it? What the answer is unclear, but
but this, yeah, no, I love what you said, Lo. So it's about attitude, isn't it? End of the day, it's about, and I love what you're doing with your hands. You kept doing this, and I thought, yeah, that's really what it is. It's about supporting, but not smothering. About allowing to grow, but holding and finding that lovely balance, that just that right. It's like a bright spot, isn't it? Finding the right tension, the right amount of support, but also the right amount of challenge, because of course, you know, we can't, without having a crystal ball, we can't foresee and have everything perfectly in place. Life just doesn't work like that. So yeah, no, I love what you said about, it's something about attitude, it's something about having and positioning yourself in that curious communication, keeping that open communication, that flow of communication, asking questions, trying, not necessarily always having the answer, but being willing to explore. Love that. Yeah, I'm just aware of the time, guys. It just flies, as it always does. We could talk for ages, couldn't we? But yeah, just as before we go, any sort of thoughts before we go, Emma?
Yeah, I think transition is just such a huge thing. I think there's just it highlights that there's transition in everything, not just with school, not just with this situation, with COVID, with in every aspect of every single person's life. There's a lot of transition, and it's difficult, I think. And I think something that Alosa said about parents not knowing the answers, I think that's actually a really good thing. It's modelling that unknown. It's modelling that actually not everybody else knows the answers just as much as the children don't know the answers. And I think that's a really valuable thing for a parent or a teacher or a carer or anybody to model that unknown in a calm way, and just be honest and say, do you know what, I don't know, but let's look at it, let's find out, and let's work it out together, and we'll get it sorted out. If that's worrying you, let's have a look. In any aspect of transition, or in any aspect of worry, I suppose, in anybody's life, it's nice to be able to go, as an adult, it's nice to be able to go to somebody and say, I'm panicking about this, and for them to be calm and say, all right, let's talk about it, let's have a look at it and see which bits of what is it about it that's worrying you, and working it out. And I think that applies to everything in life, really. Yeah,
oh, Emma, I think that's so key. No, it's true though, isn't it? And I've just thought about co-regulation, and if the adult's calm, it just kind of washes over the young person, and they can internalize that lovely modeling. It's true, so key. I thought that was lovely what you said there. Absolutely, so important. Calm, safe bases all around. Yeah, no, true. Oh, and you guys, Alosa, Ian, anything before we go?
I think I'm probably thinking back to the encouragement of what they're of interests and strengths and values. So all that kind of positive stuff through the transitions, that young person is okay and they are going to cope. I was thinking, I haven't made this point actually, and I was thinking this was a point I would make, so let me make it now. It's that idea, you often get parents or staff potentially that, I'm thinking of parents sometimes as a counsellor that's worked with young people in schools, in secondary schools particularly, where the parents maybe translate a negative image of school and the way school is handling things. And I think sometimes as a parent, you're better off bullying your school up, even if you think school. You're better off making it so that they feel like it's a belonging. Nobody wants to feel like they belong to the rubbish school or to the school that's really bad. A young person don't want to feel like that. They want to feel like their school is top notch, and yeah, it's good, and so it's kind of the same that you might bully yourself up and your partner up or somebody else, your family. You know, you want to be, a young person wants to belong to something that's good, don't they? They don't want to feel like that they're entering into this unknown, and this unknown just isn't handling it all very well, and just isn't kind of managing this process well. Yeah. If that's what they hear, they're going to feel more anxious about going to this place that just isn't doing it very good, and isn't doing it as well as this other school that so-and-so's kid goes to, or, you know what I mean? So I think there's something about reflecting the positives and sometimes keeping the negative things to yourself about, or working those out yourself, you know.
I think you're right. I think absolutely valid point. I think you've point there, because it's about having that safe base, and what you're communicating is the base is not very safe. You're going back to, and who wants to go back to that? And also you could get into this horrible cycle of awfulizing then, couldn't you? And yeah, it comes back to what you were saying about safe and secure. So key in communicating that, and I think it's important. Absolutely good point. I think you're absolutely right, Losa. Ian, any thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I mean, again, sort of, because we're kind of in a position where I suppose we've had to change a lot in a way that we've never really had to consider before. I think when it comes to transitioning, which effectively is just change, children have been through an immense amount of change, and most children have found that they've got through it. So again, the next step, the next milestone is another period of change that they'll get through. And I think if we look at life through those different frames, then I think that's something that I suppose we can encourage our young people, or young people can encourage themselves to do, is that they've got through all the transitions that we've been to in life anyway. They've got to where they're at. So the next step is going through more of those kinds of things. And it's just a matter of looking at those transition milestones as periods that have been got through, and even if they've been challenging, there's been an outcome which is, you know, it's over. And I think that's one thing that I think a lot of children need to bear in mind is, these things will change, they'll be over, new things will come along. There's lots of things that children want to do and can't do, but there's lots of things that we all want to do and can't do, but there's lots of newness come out of all this as well. So I suppose, the word reframing comes to mind. Obviously, it's a very therapeutic word, but looking at things from a different perspective. And I think if we learn to do that more, then we can overcome as much challenge as is thrown at us.
Well, absolutely. I think that's absolutely lovely what you said there. Absolutely. And reframing and practicing looking at things from different perspectives, and really discovering as human beings how flexible we can be. You know, what an amazing opportunity. It doesn't all have to be so negative. I guess it will be what we decide it's going to be as individuals. I love that.
I love that step-by-step approach, Ian, as well, that you were saying. I think that's I'm drawing that from what you've said then, reflecting that back through here, because I think that is our way of coping with the overall, isn't it? Like we've said, cope a day at a time, but also this step-by-step. It's like with little packages of things to deal with, haven't we? And we're learning with each package, learning with each transition, and bringing the good, you know, celebrating the success of the last one, like you were saying. I love that step by step.
I think it is looking at some of the positives that have come out of this. Again, the fact that, you know, education has had to rethink itself. A conversation I had the other day was with a school that said there might be quite a high level of absenteeism come September, but we're prepared for that because we've been doing education differently anyway. So those children who might still be at home, we've got ways to cope with that, whereas before they didn't have that. And it's kind of what's been different about the world of work that we can take as positives, which I think everybody who listens to this has had to do to some degree, is to think differently. It's completely rocked my world. I'm a school-based worker, and I've not been in a school for the last 3 So I've had to completely reinvent the way that I work. That's why I'm doing wonderful things like this. I've really enjoyed doing this as well. So I think, you know, this is a positive that I've got out of it. What have young people got out of it that's positive? Again, I know that some parents have said they've got a chance to spend time with their children for the first time in a long time. I know that some parents are critical of home teaching. They might have 3 children to teach with 1 laptop, but it's just the idea that they've had to sort of share that opportunity together. It's been quite positive.
Oh, that's so good. I think we can't get hung up on the negatives only. We must have some balance. And I think if anything's come out of our conversations, I think it's just bringing that balance back. You know. Oh, guys, I wish we had more time. I've just loved your thoughts, and you know, we never know where we're going to go, but it's all a bit of exploration, isn't it? And I enjoy these talks so much, and I just want to thank you and honor you again for your time, and just, you know, bringing that to the table today. Thank you so much. Have a great week to all you guys out there. Stay safe in this strange world, and yeah. Well, I guess we'll get through it together. Take care, guys. Bye. Bye.